I thought I was completely alone in the house that night. My husband had left that morning for another one of his endless work trips. A quick kiss at the door. The smell of his cologne lingering for a few seconds after the car pulled away. By evening the house felt hollow. Too quiet. Too big for just one person. But someone was still there. And they saw everything. I didn't know it yet. The night had started innocently enough. The kind of quiet evening that almost feels peaceful at first. Rain tapped gently against the kitchen window, and the soft hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. I poured myself a glass of red wine and walked barefoot through the living room, the wooden floor cool under my feet. My phone lay on the coffee table, dark and silent. No messages. No calls. That had become normal lately. My husband and I used to talk for hours. Now our conversations were reminders about bills or flight schedules. Somewhere along the way, the warmth between us had faded into something polite and distant. That night I just wanted to feel like myself again. So I turned on music, something slow and old, the kind of song that fills empty spaces without demanding attention. I cracked open the window and let the cool night air drift into the room. Then I took a long shower. Steam fogged the bathroom mirror, and the water ran down my shoulders like it was washing away months of quiet loneliness. When I stepped out, I wrapped myself in the soft robe hanging behind the door and let my damp hair fall down my back. For the first time in weeks I felt relaxed. Free. I carried my wine to the living room, the music still playing softly from the speaker on the shelf. The lights were low, just a warm lamp near the couch casting shadows along the walls. Outside, the street was dark and empty. Inside, I believed the house belonged only to me. So I let my guard down. I walked slowly across the room, swaying a little to the music, letting the quiet wrap around me like a secret. And somewhere in the darkness of the house, something moved. First I didn't notice it. The house was old and old houses always make sounds. Wood shifts. Pipes sigh. The wind presses gently against the walls like it's testing the doors. So when I heard a faint creak somewhere upstairs, I barely reacted. I was standing near the window in the living room, holding my glass of wine with both hands. The night outside was dark, but the rain had stopped, leaving the street glossy under the yellow glow of a single street lamp. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. Loose robe tied carelessly at my waist. Damp strands of hair clinging to my neck. Bare feet resting on the wooden floor. For a moment I studied my own reflection like it belonged to someone else. When was the last time someone looked at me like I mattered? Not politely. Not distracted. But really looked. The thought made my chest tighten. I took another sip of wine and turned the music up just a little louder. The slow rhythm filled the room soft and warm. Without thinking about it, I started moving with it, just small steps at first. A sway of my hips. A turn. The robe brushed lightly against my thighs as I moved across the living room. It felt silly at first, dancing alone in a quiet house. But after a minute, something inside me loosened. The tension that had been sitting in my chest for months slowly melted away. I closed my eyes for a moment and let the music guide me. The lamp cast long shadows across the walls. The curtains moved slightly with the night breeze from the open window. And for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. Then the floor upstairs creaked again. This time louder. My eyes opened instantly. I froze in the middle of the room. The music kept playing soft and steady. But suddenly the house didn't feel peaceful anymore. I turned slowly toward the staircase in the hallway. Dark. Completely dark. My heart gave a small, nervous thump, but I forced myself to exhale and shake it off. Old houses, I whispered to myself. Still, something about the silence felt different now. Like the house itself was holding its breath. I took a step toward the hallway, my fingers tightening around the wine glass. That's when I saw it. At the top of the stairs, something shifted. Not clearly, just the faintest movement in the shadows. And in that moment, a cold realization slid down my spine. Someone else was in the house. My first instinct was denial. I stood there in the living room, staring toward the staircase, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Just shadows shifting. Maybe the wind pushing a loose door somewhere upstairs. But the house had gone too quiet. Even the music suddenly felt too loud. I reached for the speaker on the shelf and lowered the volume until the song became nothing more than a soft background hum. The silence that followed made my pulse sound deafening in my ears. For a moment I didn't move. Then the floor upstairs creaked again. Slow. Deliberate. Not the random noise of an old house. A step. My heart slammed against my ribs. Someone was up there. 1,000 thoughts crashed through my mind at once. A burglar. Someone who had broken in while I was in the shower. Someone hiding in the dark, watching the empty house, waiting. Except the house hadn't been empty. I swallowed hard and set my wine glass on the coffee table. My fingers were trembling slightly now. Hello. I called out toward the staircase. My voice sounded small in the quiet house. No answer. Just silence stretching through the hallway. The lamp beside the couch flickered faintly, and for the first time that night I felt suddenly aware of myself. The thin robe tied loosely around my waist, my bare legs, the damp warmth still clinging to my skin from the shower. I pulled the robe tighter without even thinking. Is someone there? I tried again. Still nothing. The darkness at the top of the stairs looked almost solid now, like a curtain hiding something just beyond sight. I took a careful step toward the hallway. Then another. Each step made the floor whisper under my feet. Halfway to the stairs I stopped. Because I felt it. That strange instinct you can't explain. The one that tells you when someone's eyes are on you. Watching. My skin prickled. Slowly, I lifted my gaze toward the top of the staircase. For a second nothing moved. Then a shadow shifted against the wall. My breath caught. Someone was standing there. Not moving. Just watching me. My heart began to race so fast it almost hurt. Who's there? I demanded louder now. The figure didn't answer. But after a long tense second it finally started moving. Step by slow step. Coming down the stairs. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure whoever was on the stairs could hear it. Step. Another creak of wood. The figure moved slowly, one step at a time, still mostly hidden in shadow. The hallway light behind me cast a dim glow across the staircase, but not enough to clearly reveal the face. For a moment my mind jumped to the worst possible conclusion. A stranger. Someone who had been inside my house the entire time. While I showered, while I danced in the living room without a second thought. While I believed I was completely alone. I instinctively stepped backward until the edge of the couch touched the back of my legs. Stop, I said quickly, my voice shaking more than I wanted. The figure froze halfway down the stairs. The silence between us felt heavy, thick with tension. My fingers tightened around the belt of my robe, as if it were the only thing keeping me grounded. Who are you? I asked. For a moment there was no answer. Then the person shifted slightly, stepping into the dim light spilling from the living room. And suddenly, I recognized him. My breath caught in my throat. Evan. He stopped on the last step, looking just as startled as I felt. Evan was the son of my friend Claire. 19, maybe 20 now. He sometimes came by the house to help with small things. Fixing a loose cabinet hinge, carrying boxes, mowing the lawn when my husband was away. The last time I had seen him he was still awkward and quiet, barely able to hold eye contact for more than a few seconds. But the person standing on my staircase now didn't look like that nervous boy anymore. He looked older, taller, and very, very aware. I didn't mean to scare you, he said quickly, raising his hand slightly like he was trying to prove he wasn't a threat. His voice had deepened since the last time I heard it. What are you doing here? I asked, still trying to catch my breath. He hesitated. I came earlier, he said. Your husband said I could pick up the toolbox from the garage, remember? I knocked but no one answered. I thought the house was empty. My mind scrambled through the memory, and then it clicked. My husband had mentioned something about that before leaving, but I had completely forgotten. You were here the whole time? I asked slowly. Evan looked down for a moment, then back at me. I was upstairs, he admitted. The room went very still. A quiet understanding passed between us. His eyes flickered briefly toward the living room, toward the space where I had been dancing only minutes earlier, toward the open window, the music, the way I had been moving. My pulse jumped. You, I began carefully. Evan swallowed. I didn't mean to see that, he said. But the pause before his words said something else entirely, because we both knew the truth. He had seen everything. For a few seconds neither of us moved. The quiet house suddenly felt smaller, like the walls had shifted closer while we stood there staring at each other. The soft music from the living room still played, slow and distant, like it belonged to another moment entirely. Evan was standing at the bottom of the staircase now, and he was looking at me differently than I had ever seen before. Not like the shy kid who used to avoid my eyes when he came to fix a shelf or carry groceries. This look was steady, careful, and a little stunned. "I really didn't mean to watch," he said again, quieter this time, but his voice carried something heavier than embarrassment, something that made the air between us feel warmer. I crossed my arms instinctively, though it only made the thin fabric of the robe tighten slightly around me. "How long were you upstairs?" I asked. The question slipped out before I could stop it. Evan hesitated. His eyes dropped toward the floor for a moment. "Long enough to realize someone was home," he admitted. My stomach flipped. Long enough. That phrase echoed in my head louder than the music. The memory of the last 10 minutes rushed back all at once. The slow dancing in the living room, the open window, the way I had moved freely without thinking anyone could see. Heat crept up my neck. "I thought the house was empty," I murmured. "I know," he said. Our eyes met again, and something changed in that moment. It wasn't just embarrassment anymore. It was awareness. The kind that settles quietly between two people when something private has been accidentally shared. Evan shifted his weight slightly, running a hand through his hair like he didn't know where to look. But his eyes kept returning to me. Quick glances, then longer ones. "You can take the toolbox and go," I said finally, gesturing vaguely toward the garage door down the hallway. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. "Right," he said. But he didn't move. Neither of us did. The music drifted softly through the room. The open window let in a cool breath of night air that brushed against my bare legs. Evan noticed. I saw it in the way his gaze dropped for half a second before he quickly looked away again. The silence stretched. Heavy, awkward, and strangely electric. "I should go," he said again. But instead of heading for the door, he took one slow step forward into the living room. Closer to the light. Closer to me. Up close I could see the faint tension in his jaw, the way he was trying very hard to stay composed. Then he looked at me again. Really looked this time. "I've noticed you before," he said quietly. The words were simple, but they landed like a spark in a room full of dry air. My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" I asked. Evan hesitated like he was debating whether he should say the next part out loud. Then he exhaled slowly. "I mean, I've noticed you for a long time." And the way he said it made my pulse quicken in a way I hadn't felt in years. For a moment the room felt suspended in time. The music from the speaker shifted to another slow song, the soft rhythm filling the silence between us. Somewhere outside, a car passed down the street, its headlights briefly sliding across the ceiling before disappearing again. But neither of us looked away. "I've noticed you for a long time." Evan's words lingered in the air like something fragile that couldn't be taken back. I let out a quiet breath, unsure whether to laugh it off or pretend I hadn't heard it the way it sounded. "Evan," I said softly, almost warning him, but he didn't look embarrassed. If anything, he looked relieved that the words were finally out. "I know it probably sounds strange," he continued, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. "But every time I came here to help with something, I don't know, I just started noticing things." "What things?" I asked before I could stop myself. The question slipped out quietly. Too quietly. His eyes met mine again. "The way you smile when you're trying to be polite," he said. "The way you tuck your hair behind your ear when you're thinking about something." My chest tightened. "And the way you look at the door sometimes," he added. I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Like you're waiting for someone who isn't coming." The words landed softly, but they struck something deep inside me. For a second I didn't know how to respond, because he wasn't wrong. I looked away toward the open window, wrapping my arms around myself again as the cool night air drifted through the room. "You shouldn't be noticing things like that," I said quietly. "I tried not to," he admitted. That made me look back at him. Evan took another slow step into the living room. Now we were only a few feet apart, close enough that I could see the faint rise and fall of his chest with each breath. Close enough that the quiet between us felt charged with something neither of us had planned. "I stayed upstairs longer than I should have," he said. My pulse quickened again. I should have left when I realized you were home. His voice lowered slightly. But I didn't. The confession hung between us. I felt a strange warmth spread through my chest, part discomfort, part something else I didn't want to name. Why? I asked. Evan hesitated. Then his gaze dropped briefly before lifting back to mine. Because you looked happy. The word was so simple it almost hurt. You were dancing, he said softly. Like no one was watching. A quiet, embarrassed laugh slipped out of me. Well, no one was supposed to be. I know, he said. Another pause stretched between us. Then his voice dropped just a little lower. But I couldn't look away. My heart gave a slow, heavy beat. And suddenly the quiet house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full of something neither of us quite understood yet. The distance between us wasn't much anymore. Just a few quiet steps across the living room floor. I could hear the faint rhythm of the music behind me, the soft whisper of the night air through the open window. Somewhere deeper in the house, the refrigerator hummed. The only reminder that the world outside this moment still existed. Evan stood in front of me now, close enough that I could see the tension in his shoulders. Neither of us seemed to know what to do with our hands. Or with the silence. You should probably go, I said again, though my voice had softened. It didn't sound like a command anymore. More like something I was reminding myself. Evan nodded slightly. Yeah, I should. But again he didn't move. His eyes drifted toward the window behind me for a second, then back to my face. Something about his expression had changed. Not nervous anymore, but thoughtful. Like he was trying to understand something. Can I ask you something? He said. I hesitated. Okay. He shifted his weight slightly, then looked directly into my eyes. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. I opened my mouth to answer automatically, the polite answer people give when they don't want to explain their lives. But nothing came out, because the truth sat heavy in my chest. Evan must have seen it in my face. You don't have to answer, he said quickly. But it was too late. The silence had already said enough. I turned slightly, leaning one hand against the back of the couch just to give my body something to do. The soft fabric of the robe brushed against my legs as I shifted my weight. It's complicated, I said quietly. He nodded like he expected that. Yeah, he murmured. For a moment we both just stood there listening to the music. Then he said something so softly I almost missed it. You deserve to feel the way you look tonight. I glanced back at him. What do you mean? When you were dancing, he said. You looked free. The word lingered in the air. Free. I hadn't thought of it that way before. But hearing him say it made something stir inside me. Something warm and fragile. Evan took a slow step closer. Now the space between us felt almost non-existent. I've never seen someone look that alive, he added quietly. My heart started beating faster again. You shouldn't say things like that, I whispered. Why? Because you're making this complicated. His eyes softened slightly. Maybe it already was. The music shifted again behind us, a slower melody filling the room. And without thinking about it, without planning it, my hand moved slightly on the couch. Evan noticed. Our fingers brushed. Just barely. But the moment that tiny contact happened, something electric ran through me. Neither of us pulled away right away. Instead, we both froze, feeling it. The quiet spark neither of us could pretend not to notice anymore. For a few seconds our fingers stayed there, barely touching. But the warmth of his skin against mine sent a quiet wave through my chest that I hadn't felt in years. My first instinct was to pull my hand away, to create distance, to bring the room back to something normal. But I didn't. Neither did he. The music continued softly behind us, a slow rhythm filling the quiet spaces between our breaths. I could hear the faint rustle of the curtain near the open window as the night air slipped into the room. Evan looked down at our hands for a moment, then slowly back up at me. I should go, he whispered again. But his voice didn't move, and neither did his body. You probably should, I replied softly. Yet somehow we were still standing there. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence where every breath feels louder than it should. Evan's hand shifted slightly, his fingers brushing mine again. This time not by accident. A small movement, but deliberate. My heartbeat stumbled. I could see the hesitation in his eyes, The same question I felt inside my own chest. Are we really about to cross this line? You're Claire's son, I murmured, almost reminding both of us. I know. And I'm married. I know that too. His voice was calm, but there was something vulnerable in it, something honest. He wasn't pretending this moment didn't exist. Neither was I. Another quiet second passed. Then Evan took a slow breath. I didn't stay upstairs because I wanted to spy on you, he said. I stayed because, for the first time in a long time, someone in this house looked happy. The words settled deep inside me. I looked down for a moment, then back at him. And what about you? I asked quietly. What about me? Why are you still here? Evan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took one small step closer. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of him in the cool night air drifting through the window. Close enough that the silence between us became something fragile. Because you don't look lonely right now, he said. My breath caught. And before my mind had time to build its walls again, my hand moved. Not away, but upward, resting gently against his arm. The moment our eyes locked again, everything around us seemed to fade. The music, the house, the quiet street outside. There was only the tension between two people standing too close in a house that suddenly felt very full. And in that quiet moment, I realized something that scared me more than anything else. It wasn't that someone had been watching me that night. It was that, for the first time in years, I didn't want him to look away.